Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert. Narendra, are people in India getting a little bit nervous as this oil price climbs up towards $90 of Brent?
Yes, to be honest, I mean, there is a bit of anxiety because higher crude oil prices are not, good for India's economy, especially when the economy is doing so well. And all across, you see very positive sentiments, and the perception overall is that India's economy is headed for, massive growth in the coming years. So when you get a news, the kind of news that we get, then we of course get very anxious, but we, all the same time, we wonder why oil prices are going up, because we don't see any kind of upside on the demand side, and we also don't see any major disruption in terms of supply. So then why the prices are going up? I mean, we know that exports from Saudi Arabia and Iraq the last few weeks have gone down a bit as part of a design or as part of a strategy. But even that is, for instance, factored in. We don't really see much reason. We have also seen reports from Iran that Iran is going to boost, oil production. Of course, it's not going to for domestic market alone. It's going to be, they also have, exports on their radar. So it's a bit confusing picture, but my own sense is that, $85, $86, given the kind of ground realities in terms of demand and supply, and the fact there are no major geopolitical disruption. So I think it's not very sustainable. It has been artificially pushed up by some players within OPEC, and maybe there's some players from outside OPEC. And unless there is a kind of some major development in terms of growth in demand, I don't really see the prices at $85, $86 are very sustainable. If they do it artificially, then the major consumers and major producers like the United States would need to step in, and they will definitely step in. But I don't really see, I'm talking the limited horizon, the next 2-3 months, I see absolutely no reason for oil prices to be anywhere more than, let's say, in the region of $80 per barrel. I'm talking, of course, Brent.
Despite the rising price on Brent, of course, India enjoyed last year a lot of discounted Russian Urals. What's the outlook this year? Are you not benefiting from the same thing?
Well, you see, for India, the policy is very clear. It's not nothing to do with any love for any geography, including Russia. It's all about economics. So as long as Russian exporters can deliver oil at our ports, which means that they take care of shipping and insurance too, together with, of course, discounted price, Russian oil will continue to flow into India. But if there are challenges in terms of shipping, then they have to find a solution. We have a very limited shipping tonnage. 92% of our oil is imported using foreign ships. And Russia also has a very small fleet of its own. They have been basically depending on what is known as a kind of, the dark fleet or the gray fleet, all kind of names. But many of those ships were actually Western ships, tankers, some of them very old tankers. So that's something for Russia to deal with. If they can find a solution and they can deliver oil at our ports, at our refineries, and continue to offer attractive discounts, we will continue to buy, Russian oil. As he said, that we have nothing to do with the nationality of the color of oil. It's all about economics. And so far, it seems that they're trying. Russia is trying, and so our refiners are in touch with them. But at the same time, if we get better offers and more attractive discount from other markets, or at least better terms, let's say from the United States, or or from Brazil, or for that matter, Saudi Arabia and UAE and all that, we very happily go for that. But and we are also keeping very close eye on Iran. Recently, we have bought a few cargoes from Iran. We know there are sanctions, so they have been not bought directly; they've been bought indirectly. But and also this way, our refiners have also tested what happens if you bring in Iranian oil from a third party, but Iranian oil nevertheless. So is the US going to object or no? We don't know yet. But the fact is that if Iranian oil is also available at discounted rates or at least attractive rates, there are many refiners, not only India, many refiners are going to look at the Iranian oil.
Well, certainly
Because
the Chinese are looking and taking that Iranian oil in nearly exclusive quantities. But just coming back to the Russian oil, the somewhat unusual story last week where the U.S. energy envoy Amos Hochstein was quoted as saying that he's trying to help India negotiate lower prices for Russian oil by deepening the sanctions on the tankers. Your thoughts on that comment, and does a tightening sanctioning of the tanker market help India? And do you welcome this U.S. support?
well, the fact is that we are buying Russian crude oil, refining and exporting to 106 markets around the world, including the U.S. And so there's Russian oil going to the U.S. via Indian refinings. But as I said, once it's refined, it has no nationality. It is a kind of global nationality. So, but at the same time, I think for the U.S. and the Biden administration in particular, in this election year, I think their priority is to make sure that oil prices remain low. If the oil prices are very high, Biden might lose elections. Everybody knows that. I mean, so I think at this stage, my sense is the U.S. priority is to make sure that there are no supply disruptions and oil prices are kept within limits, and that's not possible unless you let Russian oil flow into market, or for instance, Iran's oil also to start flowing into market. Because beyond a point, OPEC is not going to listen. We have seen that. So in order to check the counterbalance that you need Russian oil, maybe you need even Iranian oil, and India being the third largest consumer. We are roughly consuming 5.4 million barrels of oil, and this is only growing. Demand is only growing. So I think, given all those facts, the U.S. may also not want oil prices to go beyond a limit. So U.S. has a domestic political agenda to make sure oil prices are kept low. India has a similar agenda, and at the same time, no, neither India nor China nor the United States, they want any disruption in terms of supply. So given all that, put that all into the basket. So when the U.S. envoy says what he has said, it's very easy to understand. When Russia says they wanted to continue to kind of, play an important role in global supply, it's very understandable. When India buys Russian oil, for that matter, from any geography, I mean, which is understandable. So for economy like India, we need oil at attractive rates. We don't look at the nationality tomorrow. If any other
But
geography,
you welcome the Americans' assistance to lower the price, whatever their sanctions can do to tighten, to help bring that price down. India welcomes that.
Who won't?
Just picking up on that point, India, amongst Pakistan and Bangladesh, your neighbors, were published today, the world's 3 smoggiest countries. Transition is something you've really got to get much more accelerated. Your thoughts on the report, which indicated 15 times the level recommended by the World Health Organization. While you want energy as cheap as possible, you've got to at some point think about a much greater accelerated transition. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first, very quickly, Mark's point, I just want to say that when I said the world needs Russian oil, I means if Russian oil disappears from the global supply system, the prices will go up. And therefore, the world needs Russian oil to keep the prices, within limits. That's what I meant. And for countries, price-sensitive markets like India, Russian oil presence in the global supply system is important because that checks the price. So that was my point. Coming to this thing, you see, energy transition, there is no one silver bullet, for instance, that may work for Norway or Germany and for all countries in the world. Our ground realities are different. I remember, cities in Europe, remember in the 70s, 80s and all that, about in terms of the pollution and everything. So in countries like India, and the same goes for many other countries in our part of the world, we, of course, transition is like, is going to be transition with Indian characteristics or with Asian characteristics, in the sense that, we can't go for a complete switch. That's just not possible. You can't compromise with growth. We need
but
jobs.
Can you then correspondingly afford the health bills of the 15 times the level of World Health Organization? I mean, you might be getting discounted energy prices with coal, but you're going to pay it back on the healthcare side.
Well, that's a very good question and very easy to answer. You see, the point is that, you have to kind of strike the right balance. In India, we call it the middle path. That's Buddha's path. In the sense that you can't come say, all right, we're going to take care of your health. Let's go back to caves. Let's go back to the Himalayas and meditate there. and eat grass or leaves and all that. But then it's going to be so green that even, we'll put countries like Norway and Switzerland to shame. Is that the option? Though that's not the option. So we need growth. At the same time, we take, to take care of the health of the people. So if you look at, for instance, the average lifespan in India is growing, average income is growing, average, kind of, economic growth is everybody there to see. Now, the point is that, yes, I understand that, or like if we go green, 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 then we will be able to, and you stop the infrastructure building, stop construction, stop this, and then of course we'll
Well, I
get
mean,
there.
there's
But,
a middle ground, isn't there? You don't need to be eating grass and stopping everything, but ultimately getting down, accelerating the transition away from.
if you have any country which has already done that, please send me the name of that country. I'll take the next available flight, learn it from there, recommend to my government in India to do it. There is no such case on the planet. I don't know about other planets. Now the question is, it's very easy for people to sit in comforts of London and Paris and come out with such reports, which very often they do IEAs of the world or others of the world and all that. But come to countries like India, where you have unemployment problem, you have large population, and you have geopolitical threats from all sides, north, south, east, west, everywhere, and yet you have to grow. So now how do you do that? And your energy deficit, 88% of your requirement oil you import, 56% of your requirement of gas you import, uranium you import, 90% solar power equipment you import. What do? Now, that's why I say, let these people who lecture, let them, I'll pay their bills, let them come to Delhi, show me the solution. Or give me example of one country where they've already done it. So point is, what India is doing is, India's record in terms of renewable energy is better than most developed countries. Most countries in Europe, India's renewable targets and what we have been able
Well,
to
I
do
mean,
is better.
ultimately, I don't think it's a lecture. It's just a recommendation. I mean, you're the one that's going to have to pay the health bills.
Well,
Mark,
you see, just one line. Allow me
yeah.
one line. The point is that, in terms of intellect and wisdom, we can export it to any country. What we have so much of that. We don't need lectures. We call in our language gyan. What we need, if you have technology, you have capital, let's collaborate and help find a solution in India. If you don't do that, we know how to solve our problems.
Narendra, better than expected 1 month exactly, the April 19th, India's elections kick off, the biggest democratic process in the world, over 4 weeks, starting on April 19th. As we run into the election, your outlook, your expectations for what it may deliver and what its impact will have on the continued excellent performance of India.
Well, good question. And you see, I've been traveling. I returned just yesterday. I've been traveling in central parts of India and interacting with the people on the ground, the ordinary people who are the most important voters. And so the impression one gets is that, Prime Minister Modi is going to return for the third time, which means that will be the, BJP 3.0. And they have already made a lot of promises, and they are also reminding the people all the promises they made 5 years ago have been delivered, and now they are making new promises. And one of the major promises is that they are going to make India a developed country by 2047. That's when India becomes, will be celebrating 100 years of independence from Britain. So, and that's the major message across. And for that means that 2047 is the goal, and then they are working.
And would Narendra Modi expect to be still in power by then? Is that
well,
the plan?
it's about the country. It's about the country. You see, the point is that, when you make a plan that to make India a developed country by 2047, it's just like China has a plan for 2049. Read,
Yeah,
there are a lot of literature available on that. Whether
sure.
Xi Jinping is there or not, it's not about that. It's about the country. So you see, for emerging economies, developing countries to have such goals is a fantastic thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
people in the developed who have developed already, they can't understand it. They can laugh at it. They can't understand. They developed because they exploited countries like India. That's a different story. But the point here I'm making is that, the others can laugh, but for us, India, that means you're talking of a big dream. And people are asking for milestones. So the government is talking about milestones. And so therefore, my sense is the government, BJP, will return to power, maybe with the same kind of majority or maybe slightly bigger. We don't know. That's difficult to say at this stage.
What does
But
a bigger majority, what does a bigger majority deliver for the Narendra Modi government?
well,
Does it have?
that means that's a good question. If you get a bigger majority, that means you'll be able to push ahead with further reforms in three key areas. Disinvestment, that is the privatization of state enterprises, because there's so many of them. As you know, they play a very big role in India's economy. So they have been trying to privatize, but there have been kind of China walls and roadblocks. So a bigger majority, they'll be able to do it faster. Number two, the massive and most important reforms in the agriculture sector. They tried and they didn't succeed. They actually had to take the bills out of parliament. So they would like to probably rework on it and go for the agriculture reform. Three, reforms in the conventional oil and gas sector. In India, oil and gas sector is still largely controlled by the state. So maybe that to bring in more foreign players, or maybe to bring in a domestic player, or maybe privatize a couple of the major companies, especially in the downstream sector, maybe one of them even in the upstream sector. So there are many such sectors. So I think post this, June, when the new government is installed in power, you're going to see the next 2 years massive reforms, and that will basically make India even further attractive destination for those who have got capital or technology, or those looking for collaborations in different areas, right from artificial intelligence to oil and gas to LNG, and you name it, it will be required there. So from 2024 to 2027, you're going to see India massive reforms, and for that they need this majority. If they get it, you're going to see massive reforms practically in all key sectors, and I said most particularly in areas like energy, conventional energy, and agriculture.